Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Plague Year. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Tuesday, October 20th, 2 weeks to go, 14 days before the November 3rd election event. And we are talking about the presidential election as we do every Tuesday with my Calbuzz partner, Phil Trounstine, in the far reaches of Santa Cruz County. How are you, brother?
I'm doing okay, partner.
So,
Before we begin, I think we should actually assure viewers that this is a Tubin-free broadcast, um, and that it's
yes.
safe for children.
Yes, it's safe for children. We are not Jeffrey Toobin, although Jeffrey Toobin is almost our age, and so you think he would know better by now. I've read that story. I don't know how. I still can't figure out the hell he did, except he said, I thought I could not be seen on Zoom, which I thought would be a great title
No,
for.
no, there was an update. There was an update by the New York Times late last night
Oh,
that
good.
said he was actually manipulating himself.
Yes,
Um,
no, I know what he was doing to
on the
himself.
other
I just,
screen. He
I'm a
had two
tech, I'm a
screens.
tech,
He
I'm a
had two
tech guy.
screens.
I'm a tech. We can't even figure out how to get us next to each other instead of stacked on this screen. So I'm sure I couldn't even think about attempting anything that Jeffrey Toobin did. Although he's in New York, so he knows a lot. All right, then.
Yes.
So I looked. Just let's start with the numbers. I looked at Real Clear Politics averages before we started. Uh, Nationally, Joe Biden is up 8.6 over Donald Trump. In our favorite battleground states, he's up 6.2 in Wisconsin, 7.3 in Michigan, and 3.8 in Pennsylvania. And then you go down to Arizona, he's up 3-1, up 2 in Georgia, up Florida, and 1. 538, the great Nate Silver has Biden with an 87% chance of winning, Trump with a 12%. And the reason I was checking NFL before we came on and screwed up the screen is I was checking to see what is the percentage for a field goal being missed in the NFL, and the correct answer is 15.3. So Trump's chances of winning are about as good as a field goal kicker missing a field goal, which is
Which
chilling.
happens. Hey,
It's
that
chilling.
happens.
It's chilling. So anyway, so these numbers all look so good. So why do I feel so sick and dreadful and awful, Mister?
I think there's a couple of reasons why all of us feel sick and dreadful and nervous and awful. One is our lingering uh, PTSD from 4 years ago. That that we were everyone was certain that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and that there was no chance that Donald Trump could possibly win. And he threaded that needle, um, and won with 78,000 votes in 3 states. He got just enough electoral votes to win. And um, everyone was shocked, including Donald Trump and his entire family, not to mention Melania, who apparently was, according to all the reports, was furious that this had happened.
She was
Um,
she was she was gonna go on a date with Jeffrey Toobin. Who knows?
so I think that's one of the reasons. One is sort of lingering Trump PTS
Yeah.
20 PTSD from 2016, and I have it. My wife has it. You have it. Your wife has it, and almost every thinking person we know is constantly self-checking and saying, "Don't get too invested in this because you could have your hopes and dreams dashed once
And
again."
and what is reason number two?
Reason number two is that in a brilliant article, this young woman named Kinta Jurasek wrote a piece in the Washington Post the other day, which is one of the best observations I've seen recently. One of those pieces where you say, "Damn, I wish I'd written that." It was entitled
But
"The
that would have been too
Tedium."
much like work. So
It was entitled "The Tedium of Trump," and her point was this: that Trump himself has become almost boring because of the constant number of conventions um, and normalities that he has shattered.
Mhm.
And so we're constantly saying, that can't be, he can't do that, that can't happen. And it happens almost every day. And if you just go back and look at just some of those things, the for example, the peaceful transition. We don't expect anybody to raise the issue of will there be a peaceful transition of power? The attack on mail in voting, which makes no sense to any of us because for years we've watched the Republicans harvest absentee votes in much greater numbers than the Democrats were able to. The rush through Supreme Court nominee, which is so counterproductive and counter everything they argued just, it seems like minutes ago when it was Merrick Garland. Um, uh, and why does he want to rush through? Because he wants the Supreme Court to adjudicate the vote in his election.
Yeah,
Um,
well, oh, yeah. So let's put, yeah, that's a lot to, in your
that's
opening.
just a start.
I know,
That
that's
doesn't
your
even include.
opening, I'm sorry, your 2 minutes of your opening statement are, and my mic has been turned off and now it's turned back on. All right, now, no, so, but let's talk about it a little bit at a time. If you look at those numbers, and you and I have done this for 2,000 years, I remember meeting you in the Calvin Coolidge campaign, but, you say, there's no way Joe Biden can lose. But I look at it, and I guess because of my failure of imagination 4 years ago, as there's no way Trump can lose because you're right. He's got the Supreme Court. Now he's going to have 6 votes. They've got all these voter suppression things and long lines of people and court cases and the Department of Justice. Bill Barr is going to step in.
He's got Putin.
He's got Putin, and he's got the Proud Boys standing by. So, right. He's got all of the state power to keep himself in power. He's already called for the arrest of his political enemies. And then I want to talk about this vote by mail thing because, all the stories, I wrote one yesterday about what's going on here in Santa Barbara County. 25% of the electorate's already voted. I mean, it's just, it's extraordinary. And it's heavily Democratic. And as you say, historically, it's been the Republicans who have used the mail. But what's happening is the Republicans are the ones who are going to go to the ballot, to the polls on election day. The Democrats will have already voted. And what's going to get counted in those key states, those 3 key states particularly, are the votes on election day. So he's going to come out at 8:01 and say, well, the results in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania make it clear I've won. Thank you very much. Good night. And then, then it's like possession's 9/10 of the law. We're going to have to take it away. So I just, I would love to look at those numbers and say, gee, I feel confident that democracy will out, but I just, there's just too many moving pieces for me.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think that I think that kind of scenario is possible. Um, there are two things which could happen to upset that scenario dramatically, and that is number one, Florida. Florida's vote is going to be announced at about 8:01 on election night because it gets counted. Um, uh, and I don't know if this will happen, if Joe Biden wins Florida, the electoral numbers become almost impossible for Trump, even if he wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and the trifecta is less possible than perhaps winning one of those, Pennsylvania, perhaps, which appears to be the closest race. But if Florida comes in, we're all going to be able to breathe a lot easier, because if Florida comes in for Biden, um, like I say, I don't know how Trump, uh, you know,
No, I agree with
makes a
that.
number.
The only problem is, well, let's see, what is he? He's up, Biden's up one in
Right,
Florida, which is, so he's within the margin. And I'm
right.
reading all these stories about this voter registration drive that the
Well,
Republicans.
yeah, there's door to door. The Republicans are going door to door because they don't care about COVID. And um, so they have launched a significant door to door campaign, and everybody knows, everybody who's done field work knows that door to door campaigning is more effective than um, remote campaigning by mail or by email or telephone calls. But once again, that's old rules.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, I don't know if that's true this year.
All right. So over here on this side, we have, the happiest scenario for Calbuzz and all right thinking people everywhere, which is
Right.
Florida comes in for Biden. And over here, we have Jerry's tormented, paranoid view, which is that the Proud Boys take over the election. And then, so what else? We're not going to know much on election night. Chances are. Do you think that's right?
I think that's possible. I think it's possible that we may not know the answer on election night. The other factor would be Arizona, and that is if Biden wins both Florida and Arizona, Trump is finished. There's too many electoral votes then uh, that, that Biden will have, and that would indicate a swamp. Now you won't know Arizona till a couple of hours later, because of time zone.
Are they on our time, or are they?
I think they're in Mountain Time. I think they're one time zone over.
Or do they not have daylight savings?
I don't know.
I-
That's possible too.
all right. So
So no, look, I think it's entirely possible that we don't know for sure. Or here's even the greater possibility. The real possibility is this. We know in our hearts, in our minds, um, and from factual evidence that Joe Biden has won this election. But the Trump forces decide they're going to contest it in every possible way, in every possible place. They're going to say these votes in Pennsylvania were counted too late. The votes in Michigan were tampered with. The votes in Wisconsin.
So state to state legal trench warfare.
Exactly. And each one trying to get to the Supreme Court. And at this point, you have a 6-3 Supreme Court in favor of Donald Trump's forces. And you get a Bush v. Gore kind of outcome at the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court says Biden is the loser. At that point, I think Biden is going to contest it back more than Al Gore did. I don't think he's going to throw in the towel the same way.
Yeah. Well, of course, we had that case from Pennsylvania that was at the Supreme Court yesterday.
Exactly.
Where the Republican legislature wanted to decree an early end to the count, basically.
Right.
And the Supremes voted 4-4 with Roberts going with the 3 remaining liberals. So the state court upheld it, which, is what they should have done, because it's a state court decision. It's clearly a decision for state courts to make. But the fact that the 4 conservatives that are already there went the other way is chilling. All right, we're getting a little ahead.
Well, add to that, Jerry, that had it been the Trump court as currently constituted, I mean, as it will be constituted with Amy Coney Barrett doing the voting, the best it would have been for the right thinking side is 5-4, and Roberts could well have gone the other way, so made it 6-3 if he saw that was the way it was moving.
Yeah. All right. Well, we do have 2 weeks left, so let's talk about the so-called campaign a little bit. We have this debate on Thursday day after tomorrow. And it's interesting because there hasn't been, I mean, the second one was canceled because Trump was Typhoon Trump. So there hasn't been much made of this one, but it actually could be a pretty big deal. What do you think? You think anything changes or?
Well, first of all, you've got these two factors. One is Trump saying he wants it to be all about foreign policy so that um, he can attack on Hunter Biden because he wants that would be, of course, a logical foreign policy issue for Trump to bring up.
Yes, and one that's high in the top 5 issues for all Americans.
Exactly, exactly. Everyone's been wondering, what about that Trump? What about that Hunter Biden thing? Um, and secondly, they've changed the rules where they're going to mute, they say, um, the other candidate when they'll mute you when I'm talking with my 2 minutes. They mute me when you're talking with your 2 minutes. Except that somebody pointed out a while ago, he can still be heard.
It's not. It doesn't matter.
He can still be heard on the microphone. Trump will still be heard over Biden's microphone over here nattering and interrupting. And that's part of their strategy because Biden has had all of his life a stutter, and a person who gets the best way to dishevel a stutterer is by interrupting them and making them lose their train of thought so they can't stay on point. I mean, that is a calculated move on their part, the interruptions, because of Biden's disability. So, but the fundamental question about the debate is you have to ask, and you and I have said this so many times, if you have a certain dynamic in the race, the person who's behind has to win that debate in order to be able to move forward. That a draw is a win for the person who's ahead. And as far as I can tell, and maybe you can point to something that I'm not aware of, Donald Trump has really done nothing in this campaign and perhaps not in his presidency to reach beyond his base.
No.
And so if it's very hard to envision a scenario in which Trump performs in such a way that somebody who's planning to vote for Biden says, "Oh, geez, that Trump, he's really, really good. I think I got to move. I think I'm going to have to support him."
Well, and the other thing,
don't you think that's just hard to envision?
Well, it is, and the other thing is, going on. I mean, it's over a year now. The polls have been baked in. I mean, the support's baked in. I mean, it's like Biden's up by 6. Trump throws up on his shoes. Biden's up by 7. Trump sets his hair on fire. Biden's up by 5. I mean, it doesn't matter. It just seems like the quote unquote undecided voter by this point. If you're truly an undecided voter, you're not going to vote. I mean,
if you're an undecided voter, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, a true undecided at this point is not somebody of firm mental capacity.
All right, so let's assume that Trump can't win the debate, but Biden could still lose it.
Yeah.
And what
Biden could do something stupid. I said this during the vice president debate. I think it's true in this debate. I really think that Biden should accuse Trump of packing the court before Trump gets to that point. Because the one thing that's sort of hanging out there is this notion that, the Democrats, they're going to pack the court.
Well, and he's going to get asked about it.
Right.
Even if,
but I just think even before the issue is brought up by a questioner or anything else, Biden ought to strike first. He ought to say, one of the things that's wrong with Donald Trump's presidency, not only is he terrible on COVID, as he wrecked the economy and people, 10 million people out of work, but he has packed the courts with right-wing reactionaries who are seeking to undermine American liberties.
which would be a big swing. And we talked about it last time about how the frustration was, yeah, he kind of hung in tactically and, I won on points in the 6th round or whatever. But he never took a big swing at Trump. He never said,
Right.
after all, sir, have you no shame?
Right.
He never had that McCarthy, Army hearings moment.
Right.
Where he said the truth, which is you are an abomination. You are not fit to be president.
Well, he did say you're the worst president we've ever had.
Yeah, but he couldn't. You are the worst.
Yeah, it wasn't real clear. If you and I were his debate coaches, one of the lines I'd have baked in is, the reason you do this, Mr. President, is you can't handle the truth. I would take that Jack Nicholson line and and I would use it, and it would be broadcast over and over and over again. Um, and and it's true. Donald Trump interrupts and and talks over Biden because he can't handle the truth.
No, because he's a
Simply cannot. He's psychologically incapable.
Sociopathic. All right. So since the last debate, since we last talked, whenever, between 500 and 1,000 Americans dying every day of COVID.
I know. And people should know that you've been religiously posting those numbers on them.
It drives me
every
crazy.
day.
And, the economy's still sinking. The Wall Street people are doing fine. The economy's sinking. The whole Black Lives Matter racism thing seems to have, kind of disappeared. But what I hear people talking about here in Santa Barbara, the political center of the universe, is Hunter Biden's laptop and what that's all about. Right. So, one of the things we did on Calbuzz and why we had such unexpected early success was that we wrote about the media a lot, because media people like to read about themselves. So, if we were still, sort of actively doing that, would we have a legitimate beef with the so-called mainstream media, the Post, the Times, the Nets, about not aggressively pursuing the story that the New York Post broke about Hunter Biden's laptop and the contents thereof?
Well, I think we'd probably be congratulating the mainstream media for finally making a decision.
For not biting
on an obvious phony lure. It's like this is the methodology that the Putin campaign technology of throwing out this fat-looking lure and then getting the fish to go after it.
Which is what happened with what's his name's with the WikiLeaks.
With
John Podesta.
With Mr. New York Friendly Pants and his laptop.
Anthony Weiner, who I believe is very close to Jeffrey Toobin. But it's almost like if you conflate Jeffrey Toobin and Hunter Biden's laptop, you might have a story. But wait a minute now.
No. I think
go ahead.
I don't think we'd be critical of them for failing to pursue it, except to the point of saying, if you're going to debunk it all the way. Show that it is, in fact, a Russian plant story. And some of them have done that.
And the reason I don't tend to that perspective is because Biden, they're not denying it. They're not saying these aren't his emails. They're just saying, oh, it's a smear and we're not going to. I mean, I don't, if I'm Biden, I say, I'll tell you what, I'll talk about Hunter's laptop if you show me Donnie Jr.'s laptop. I mean, why?
What I don't get, look, Ivanka Trump, Donald's favorite, has got so much that is conflict of interest and is nepotism and sheer thievery by use of high office, Biden has completely laid off his
Yeah.
kids.
And is that, because it's a norm? Because he's like, oh, we don't talk about people's kids, which is another of those ancient things from, 5 years ago when the candidate's family wasn't really fair game, Billy Carter or, goofy
I
shit.
don't know. Maybe, but it also may be that the Biden campaign people are making a calculation. Their calculation is, look, we've gotten this far ahead in this many places without making any terrible mistakes. Let's not risk something that could blow up in our face. Let's not light an exploding cigar. And we can
Just run the ball. Just hand off.
4 yards and a cloud of dust, and that's how we're going to do it. Which is why I've said several times, I think even in our broadcast, that I don't mind if Biden spends time in Arizona and Florida as long as he nails down Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. I'm worried about Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, the margin's very close.
It's getting closer.
Right. And Western Pennsylvania, if you've ever been out there, is practically Alabama. Speaking of which, by the way, if you listened to Joe Trippy's podcast, Paul Maslin, who's polling for Doug Jones, was on there and says that race is even, that it's under the radar.
Doug Jones in Alabama?
In Alabama, that's a very good chance that Doug Jones can survive in Alabama.
Wow, that Tuberville, doesn't Tuberville have a laptop, or he's got some kind of scandal going on with his foundation or something?
I don't even know because I haven't followed it that closely, but I do know that the only credential he's got is he's a former football player.
Yeah, a coach. Although he moved around a lot. Did they talk about the Michigan Senate race at all? Because that's the latest bedwetting spectacle, is that the Democratic incumbent there is, some people are worried that the Republicans could pull a surprise.
No, they didn't mention it. They may have, but I didn't. If they did, I didn't catch it. But I really only listened to the Alabama part of the discussion.
Yeah. Well,
But Maslin's the pollster. Maslin is the pollster.
He's the pollster for Jones.
And he was 4 years ago. And when Trippy was running the campaign, I guess it was 4 years ago.
2 years ago. It was a special election.
Yeah.
It was the election for Jeff Sessions' seat.
That's right. It was for his seat, which comes up by time. Jerry, before we finish off, don't we need to talk a little bit about our old friend Dianne Feinstein?
Who?
Well, as her official biographer.
Well, I'm not her official I am her biographer.
As her biographer.
Nothing official about it, believe me. All right, so here's the thing. So Dianne, as you often cruelly state, Phil, and I've hated you for doing this, is older than the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay. Right. And she is now 87 years old. The senior senator from California. And there was a lot of noise on the left. Brian Fallon, particularly, who appeared in every story, a former Schumer guy who's trying to make his bones with the lefty, saying she should not be allowed to be the ranking Democrat on judiciary for this Supreme Court justice hearing because she's going to screw it up. She's too nice. And I actually thought she did okay. I thought she brought out some very interesting answers from Amy on Medicare, for example. She wouldn't commit that Medicare was settled law. But then at the end, she just kind of coughed it up on the 2-yard line there, where she gave Lindsey Graham a big hug, and she talked about how fair he'd been, and this has been such a great process, which kind of undercut the Democrats' entire message on that. Right. So the question is, why did she do it? Did she do it because A, that's who she is, or B, because she's lost her marbles? And I gotta say, I just think it's A. We've all lost a step as we've gone decades, and which means she's lost 2 more steps than either of us has, which is saying something. But nonetheless, that's who she is. And she's the Coral Foundation intern. She's the Convent of the Sacred Heart girl. And she's, the oldest of 3 siblings who grew up with a mental illness in the family, her mother, and was always trying to work everything out and ease over the conflict and make everybody okay. And that's not qualitatively different than anything she's done for her whole life. She's been the center right, center left, whatever, moderate. She's tried to play both sides. She's big on bipartisanship. So in one sense, no one should be surprised that's what she did. In the other sense, it's like, read the room, Diane. I mean, she's not seeing the moment that we are in. So
I think
that's
what we have to worry
the
about
biggest apology I can offer, I guess.
Well, but you see, I think California and American voters could say that's all fine and good, but her psychological framework is not as important as her function in the United States Senate. And
people said that about my book too. But
I mean, it seems to me that if she's tipped her hand, that that if there's a move to eliminate the filibuster, she's not going to be in favor. And I doubt very seriously if she'd be in favor of expanding the size of the United States Supreme Court. And if there's any way for the Democrats to rebalance what the Trump and the Mitch McConnell have done over the past 3.5 years, not only on the Supreme Court, but in all the federal courts throughout the land, if there's any way to rebalance that, it's that the Democrats have to play a kind of hardball that they're not used to, particularly in the United States.
She's not suited for. She's particularly not suited for.
Right. And so it really raises a question: do we have a California senator who is been passed by the times? And God knows we've defended Diane as a candidate against people like Kevin DeLeon and others who've attacked her. But at some point, you have to say, "Wait a minute! Time has passed her by."
Well, time has passed us by too. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it. So, I mean, the time passes everybody by. But yeah, there's slightly higher stakes with her. So what about this pathway? Well, first of all, an issue with that argument is, well, Biden himself is not apparently for
Right.
court packing, and I wish they'd kind of stop calling it court packing. But anyway, I mean, that's the problem with the issue. You can't win that issue. That's never going to pull above 25%. Should the
Right.
Democrats pack the court? No. So, let's start with that. But Biden's not enthusiastic about it, to say, sort of the best case. But if they decide that's the way they want to go, maybe she might want to retire after Joe gets elected and let Gavin, appoint a replacement. Maybe she would have retired if Trump hadn't won. I don't know.
It's hard to say, but that's not a bad thought if that's the direction in which the party decides it needs to move, and she can't pull the trigger. It seems to me that would be the graceful thing for her to do, would be to get out of the way.
All right, then the key question is, who would Gavin could then end up with 2 Senate appointments.
Right.
If Kamala, because he'll get Kamala anyway. So I am certain that Karen Bass would be the first.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think Alex Padilla would be the second. There, you can read.
I'm not sure. I got a feeling it could be a Latino first. I think it could be Padilla first. Um, I think personally, the single best person in California to move into the Senate
Jerry
is
Brown.
Adam Schiff.
Oh,
And
Jerry Brown.
well, Jerry Brown would be great too, but Adam Schiff, I think, is probably in the real world the single best player on the field. But I don't, as a white man, I think he's got no chance.
He's
Jerry
got
Brown, great, would be
Well,
a great,
Brown would be great because Kamala's up in 2022.
right,
So Jerry would be an interim appointment. Everybody would agree to that, and
right.
he could really, break some stuff in just a year of being there because he's smarter than.
That would be a great move. Um, and you know, you heard it here first on Calbuzz.
That's right. Okay. All right, we gotta go. Time's up. We'll be back next week. 14 days to go. I put this New Yorker cartoon up the other day about this old white fat guy who just had himself cryogenically preserved until the election because it's too nervous making for me. All right, I'll talk to you.
Okay, partner.